Let's talk about the big news of that you posted of the headquarters.
Yeah.
Not moving to, and I found it interesting because so the FBI headquarters, the new headquarters, is going to be built in Greenbelt, Maryland.
That was the announcement GSA put out yesterday. Yes.
The other considerations were Springfield
And Landover.
Yep. Which is where, if you were a Washington Wizards fan, long before the Wizards, there were the Bullets, and they played in Landover.
Yes.
And I think the Magic Johnson has movie theaters there now.
Yeah.
That sit there
in that area.
In what was called the Capitol Center.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because I remember hearing people think, "Oh, I think Huntsville might get the FBI headquarters." I'm like, "What?"
So yeah. So that came about just from one of the congressmen put out the idea. I think it was Jim Jordan.
Oh, really?
Just threw out the idea of, the FBI has not been able to lock down a new headquarters in D.C. Why don't we just put it down there in Huntsville where they're building all the other stuff?
Oh, okay.
I think it was more of just a
tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah, tongue-in-cheek thing, more just trying to score political points than reality. But yeah, that it was out there for a hot second, and people were they were like, wait, is this like a Space Command thing? Is FBI thinking of maybe moving something down here? But no, it was Huntsville was never something that was considered major consideration for the new headquarters.
Yeah.
But yeah, so these are the original 3 sites that we were looking at back in 2015 when I was on the new headquarters project, and it was a surprise. It was a surprise for pretty much all of us. We'd heard that the site selection was kind of being assessed, but yeah. The announcement of it, there was really no forewarning on the FBI side, so everybody was just kind of like, "Oh, okay, Greenbelt."
And this was yesterday, right?
This was yesterday evening, yeah.
Wow.
So I mean, that comes with some. There's going to be some interesting conversations over the next week and beyond within the FBI. Obviously, the FBI footprint from the employee standpoint is spread across the entire National Capital Region.
Sure.
And so you've got people that were as far south or further south than even I was in Northern Virginia. I lived in Stafford while I was working in D.C. And then you've got people that are far north in Maryland. And so obviously the challenge, and this was the same challenge we were experiencing during the original new headquarters project, was any move that we make is going to be detrimental to roughly half of the current FBI population in the area. And so how do you mitigate that to an extent, and what can you do to try to ensure that whichever direction we go is equitable as possible for the existing population?
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see, and as with most things, this is something that GSA announced it. There's still a whole bunch that has to go into actually actioning it, and there's still probably going to be plenty of inquiries into how was the decision made. I'm sure Congress will probably have some hearings related to this. So it's still early days in that process. And that's even before we start getting into the design of the actual, whether it's a building or I think in the release, they talked about a campus. But yeah, so it'll be really interesting to see how this progresses over the next couple of months.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly interesting on the heels of not FBI related, but, the whole Space Command. Mm-hmm. And that's tied up in, wait a minute, Colorado was number 4 on the list, and somehow they're keeping it there, right? And so there's just all this stuff going on with the outgoing general. He's supposed to retire, and he bought a farm nearby, whatever. But
yeah, there's a lot of factors that are probably going to have to be assessed in that overall decision.
Well, what's interesting about it, I mean, Huntsville, I learned through, I think you may know, I don't know if you know Ethan Woodruff. He's heading up they're trying to build a zoo. Mm-hmm. And when I interviewed him,
here in Huntsville, right?
Yeah. He brought in a whole slide presentation, and I was like, I don't think I can do 130 slides, but there's some really good information.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that keeps sticking in my mind is that we're like the 110th largest city in the country.
Yeah.
So we're secondary market.
Yeah.
But when it comes to why did they choose Greenbelt? Well, the metro is like a huge thing. Metro, train, depending on where you live, the subway,
public transportation.
The public transportation that goes out to Greenbelt, what I read is a huge piece, right?
It's a factor for sure.
It's a factor. I think part of that too is Northern Virginia. Now they've extended the metro line out even past Dulles Airport.
Yep.
So in theory, you don't necessarily have to drive all the way to Greenbelt if you're a bureau employee and you want to stay in Fairfax or Loudoun County, Virginia.
Yeah.
You can take the train all the way. It might take you a while, but you can get there.
Yeah.